And that's actually what's interesting is I didn't really know how far I was going to take videography and photography when I first got into it. I just kind of received a camera, and at first, even some of my friends were like, "Oh, you're a photographer now." Like, okay. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. But I went to school for graphic design because I kind of, for some reason, I kind of felt like I didn't receive that much support right off the start. So I was like, I kind of want to go to school for something that can complement that videography and photography. And with that was graphic design, because as we know, we have photography, you could throw graphics on top or text or anything that you can create an ad out of. So with that comes like magazine layouts and, any kind of graphic design like show flyers. Maybe someone wants to make a card to send out invitations for a baby shower, and like you could combine your photography with your graphic design. So I think that allowed me to kind of expand my portfolio a bit more and be able to be kind of a jack of all trades for a while.
Welcome to the Before You Say I Do podcast. This podcast helps wedding couples learn industry secrets about the wedding industry and the various wedding vendors in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia areas. My name is Joshua Buxton, and I am your host. With over 7 years as a professional wedding videographer, I have filmed many weddings all over the United States and hope to help wedding couples find the right vendors before they say I do. Welcome to Before You Say I Do podcast. I'm Joshua Buxton with Buxton Media Productions, and today I have a very special guest, Sebastian Ramos, who is our new lead videographer and our production manager here at Buxton Media Productions. Sebastian, welcome.
Thank you, Josh. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. So, Sebastian, can you tell me a little bit about your history, kind of how you got into wedding videography? Because that's kind of the nice thing right now is we're definitely going to talk about wedding videography today.
Absolutely.
So just tell me a little bit about your history.
Yeah, absolutely. So I first, in high school, I got into an art class, and it kind of sparked my interest in the arts in general. And eventually, when I graduated high school, I got a camera, and I started with photography, actually. So, we all start somewhere. And eventually, a couple years later, one of my good buddies, he got into videography a lot more. So I started to see his content. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then he took me on a couple shoots. And after that, I was like, I think I want to do videography a bit more. And then that kind of led down the path of, acquiring freelance gigs. I had a mentor for a while. His name is Nunu. He was absolutely amazing at teaching. He knew so much about lighting, and we would just go on these, photo shoots and video shoots and just really get down to the technicality of all the lighting and everything. So he really sparked that professionality in me at that point. And then from there, just years and years of shooting.
Awesome. Well, I know that beyond just the videography, you've done more than that, right? I know you've talked to me about, your college experience was not really videography, it was graphic design, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about that. Like, you've been in this creative space for a long time. You started off as a graphic designer. What was kind of your path from graphic design and what ended you up into videography? Because I know it's been a long path, getting to that.
And that's actually what's interesting is I didn't really know how far I was going to take videography and photography when I first got into it. I just kind of received a camera, and at first, even some of my friends were like, "Oh, you're a photographer now." Like, okay. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. But I went to school for graphic design because for some reason, I kind of felt like I didn't receive that much support right off the start. So I was like, I kind of want to go to school for something that can complement that videography and photography. And with that was graphic design, because as we know, we have photography, you could throw graphics on top or text or anything that you can create an ad out of. So with that comes like magazine layouts and, any kind of graphic design like show flyers. Maybe someone wants to make a card to send out invitations for a baby shower, and like you could combine your photography with your graphic design. So I think that allowed me to kind of expand my portfolio a bit more and be able to be kind of a jack of all trades for a while.
Nice. That's really cool. That was something that really drew me to really bringing you on board here was, just the variety of creativeness that you actually bring to the table. Not just videography, but the graphic design, the photography, and it's all like because you have a good, keen eye for good design. And that was something that was really, really critical of somebody I wanted here in our company, was this creative eye that brings a sense of elegance to everything that we do. So, talking a little bit about, in your job here now at Buxton Media Productions, can you talk a little bit about what your role is and like what you do?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, just want to start off by saying that it's been a big, big, big step in my life to kind of step into this kind of role, because I think over the last 10 plus years of me being like a creative, like I said, I kind of dove into a lot of things, and now being able to kind of come together and put them all together into one package and be able to really apply all of that. I mean, we have graphic design graphics that we're making for our social media. That is expanding that graphic design touch. We have photography that we're doing. We have the videography side that we're also doing. So kind of bringing all of that together has felt good and right timing for me in my life, which is great. And I appreciate you saying that about the elegance touch to my creative eye. I appreciate that. But yeah, my role here, I think being able to manage lots of different projects and be able to have our own studio, and we have different kinds of clients that we also work with. So being able to cater specific projects to those clients has been very interesting. We have shoots down in DC. We have shoots here in the studio. We set up Zoom calls for meetings. There's just a big array of stuff, and I think it's been quite fun to get into all of it.
That's really awesome. So kind of getting re-geared back towards into weddings here a little bit. So talking a little bit about more videography stuff. Can you help tell wedding couples, especially, of like what are some things that maybe they should look out for when they're trying to hire a wedding videographer?
The thing that tends to happen most of the time is that we're all budgeting, right? We have lots of expenses. We have tons of things to think about. So where do you start? And I think people tend to start with photography and other vendors first, and I think that's amazing because, they're almost like a very standard staple of the wedding industry. Now, as we've inserted videography and other types of vendors into the mix, obviously, I think a lot of them are very important, including videography, and with that comes quality as well, which, as we all know, we search for the best photographer. We go all out for those kinds of things, and I think that's great. But when you're looking to hire a wedding videographer, you're looking for the same kinds of things. And it's your most special day in your life, and I think one of the best tips that I can give is to not cut corners on the videography. And that's just me trying to be honest and blunt about the fact that every vendor is pretty much as equally as important, and it's good to make sure that we budget appropriately for all of them, and that way you get the best results for your most special day.
Yeah, I think that's really important. It's, everybody has their budgets, and I totally agree with that. And, some things that, unfortunately, videography is towards the end, usually is when people figure this out, but the best videographers out there will probably be booked by that point. And so now you're left with, not as experienced videographers, unfortunately. And that is something I try to tell couples is like, even if they don't go with us as a wedding videography company, I try to impress upon, wedding couples, like maybe some things to look out for, with other wedding videographers, so that one, that they're well informed, because while we may not be the right price point for them, they should definitely be weary of certain lower price point videographers. But if they know the right questions to ask, then they may be able to still find, the diamond in the rough, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Those budding videographers that are out there that like have a lot of skills, but they're brand new to the industry, and I think it's helpful for couples to be able to hear that from a wedding videographer who's just not trying to sell them a package,
Yeah.
I actually care for every wedding couple that comes to us and is inquiring about what we do, whether I book them or not. It's like I want them to make sure that they still get the best videographer out there. So, on kind of in that direction of like, what are, in your opinion, some things that wedding couples should look out for when it comes to possibly lower budget wedding videographers?
Yeah, I think when looking at lower budget videographers, you're probably looking at a difference in gear and quality when it comes to maybe their eye, their creative eye. So you might have people that maybe are 2 or 3 years in and they've only been able to invest so much into their craft, and they might have starter cameras. And that's when you run into situations where you have very dark footage when you receive it, or color looks a little bit weird, so things like that. And aside from being a gear related thing, it's definitely the how to adapt to difficult situations, and specifically ones that happen out of nowhere and in the moment. And I could give you a little bit of an example. So sometimes things run late at weddings, and you have coordinators that are doing their best to kind of keep track of everything, all the moving pieces, right? And sometimes that makes it so that you don't know what you're supposed to be doing until just a couple moments before. So what happens is you might have paid for a videographer that doesn't have as much experience with handling that kind of pressure. And that comes, being able to handle that pressure comes when you've been doing it for a long time. Mm-hmm. So that could be the split second that it takes for them to actually get the shot of you having the kiss, or maybe mom started crying and they were able to notice with quick awareness and shift it over to get that shot. So they say like a picture is worth 1,000 words and things like that, and I think videography is the same. And like when you are crafting a video, you surely don't want to miss things, and you want to be sharp and quick, and that comes with experience.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something I definitely make sure to tell wedding couples, is that I have done enough weddings at this point that I can anticipate the problems before they happen, because I've seen so many different scenarios. I've seen every wedding has this problem. And so like every wedding makes me a better videographer. So when you're hiring somebody who's done 1 or 2 weddings, you're hiring somebody who doesn't know how to anticipate all the problems that will probably happen during the day, because there is no perfect wedding out there. That's just there's all these problems usually behind the scenes. Like the couples never see these things, and that's for the best. And that's if the couple doesn't see the problems, that means they hired a good coordinator, they've hired good vendors, and they can be blissfully unaware of all the problems that happen on wedding day. And that's actually the best thing, is that they have no idea all the problems that happen. Because I'll tell you right now, every wedding has its problems. There's always an issue with something or another, whether it's scheduling or, rain, weather, all that stuff. But every wedding has its problems. But, when you hire a inexperienced wedding videographer, they may forget to hit record. They may, whether it's on their camera or audio. And if they're not asking wedding couples about audio, and like, hey, I'm going to make sure that I put a lav mic on the groom, or I'm going to make sure, who's the DJ, who's running audio at your ceremony. I ask these questions because I know how important audio is, just as the video. And if they're not as worried about audio or lighting, you're going to get a poorer quality video, unfortunately. And that's a sad reality. It's like, it's not just the video, we're worried about audio and video. And so,
yeah.
And that comes with, many years of experience and many weddings and many problems. And now, because of my experience, especially when it comes to lighting, is I don't have just one source of audio. I have a backup, and I have another backup.
Exactly.
Because something happens. I've had a wedding. It was a while back, a wedding, and it was a reception, and we were filming the speeches, and I didn't realize this till well after the wedding, but the DJ it was a live band, and they went over. I gave them, the audio inputs. They were all good. I thought everything was good. And what I realized after the wedding is there must have been some kind of miscommunication, because I could see him in the video go over to the soundboard and literally turn my channel completely off during the speeches.
Wow.
And I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
No way.
Yeah, so like I didn't have audio for the speeches on my good, clean audio from the board. And I think the miscommunication was that he thought we were recording the band, not them. I don't know why. But again, it's like those little things make me a better videographer now. And luckily during that speech, I had other audio sources to capture.
Yeah.
And again, years of experience has taught me, have multiple sources of audio. So like if we need to put a lav mic on a groom, there's a reason. You know, if I want to get an audio from an audio board for the ceremony, there's a reason. And then that kind of leads into lighting. You know, lighting is a whole nother thing that as I'm finding more and more with couples, to make sure to explain to them how important lighting is. Not, I mean, ceremonies, if they're outside, it's perfectly fine. It's the receptions. You know, I know most couples really care about these dark, moody reception locations, and there's little pops of architecture lighting and stuff. That's great. But no, if you want a good video, we're going to have to put some lighting up. And it may be annoying at first, but understand that we have your best interest in mind. So talking about lighting, you know, go into like the thoughts of why we need the lighting and like why we use them.
For sure. And that's definitely also so true. And, you know, the aesthetic of a wedding I know is very important to couples. So you're very right about that. And I think the main idea with all of this is for everyone to be educated on what is needed for each vendor to achieve the best results. And I think with the lighting situation at receptions, what tends to happen is, you know, sometimes they're candle lit and they might have, you know, some lights from the venue, but what ends up happening, they turn them down very, very low. So for us to be able to achieve the best results, we need to be able to fill in that darkness that is being created. And what it usually allows us to do is separate, aside from filling in the subject, it allows us to separate the subject from the background. Right. So being able to add a hair light just adds that separation from the background. And I think those are the moments or the elements that make a cinematic shot. You know, good lighting, good composition, and obviously good equipment, and, you know, having a story that you're telling, which is what we're building throughout the day.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, you know, and that's key, is like the reason why we want good lighting, good audio for reception, the dances, the ceremony, is because we use elements of the speeches and the ceremony and the vows to tell this love story that is in their highlight. And that's what everybody's paying us for, is to build these amazing cinematic love stories for them of their day, you know. And what's great is like a lot of couples that I talk to after the wedding day, some of, you know, referenced to me that they thought about not getting a wedding videographer. And they were so thankful after watching the highlight that they got one, because they're, you know, they would have never had these moments. You know, photography does a great job, and I definitely don't discount anything photographers do. However, photographers are only getting 1 second in a moment. They're not capturing the speeches forever. They're not capturing your vows forever. They're capturing an image, which is great, and it looks beautiful. But there's so many moments throughout the day that we capture that you'll have for a lifetime, you know, and that should be really important to a lot of wedding couples, especially, it's not even just next year. Think 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. You know, the sad reality is there's a lot of people that's going to be at your weddings that you will not probably see again in 20 years. And so these are memories that you can relive down the road beyond just a picture. And so, you know, trying to make sure that couples understand that it's, you know, this is an investment, you know, into your memories. So, you know, you only get one shot at this day, for the most part. You know, you may have a second chance at some point, but, you know, like wedding videography definitely has a huge part of capturing memories that you'll have for a lifetime. You know, what good is a venue? What good is a cake? What good are these speeches and vows if you're not capturing them?
Yeah. And I would actually say one big thing would be, you know, we live in a digital age, and I think, you know, think about a social media platform that first comes out. What tends to happen? You have the people that accept it, and they're like, I'm going to use it. They download it instantly, and they're like on it, right? And they tell all their friends. I was one of the first ones, right? And there's people like me
Yep.
who like last a long time before they're like, I guess I'll get that app that everyone's been talking about, right? Which is, you know, sometimes it's fine to be a little late, but sometimes it's not okay to be a little late. And I think what I'm trying to tie that all in to say is that we live in a digital age where videography is even more prominent than photography when it comes to marketing, when it comes to so many other avenues. So I think video capturing our memories, as you just stated, should be a no-brainer.
Right.
Just like photography is a no-brainer, and I think that's where we're moving anyways. And think about AI and think about virtual reality sets where eventually they will be able to take a video that we've made and you might be able to put on your Apple headphone or, Vision Pros or whatever they're called.
Right.
And then you could relive that memory,
Yeah.
So I would say, it's kind of like our great-great-grandparents and being like, wow, I wish we would have had more photos of them, or I wish we would have had video of them. And it's like we have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So
So you talking about VR and augmented reality and things like that, like this is something we really haven't disclosed on our website or really talked about so much with, with wedding couples, because we want to make sure that we work out all the kinks first before we launch this, but it is, I think, something that's going to be coming really soon by what we do. And that is having ceremonies, speeches, and dances that are all in 360. So now imagine, you're not just getting the 16 by 9 flat image where nothing changes. Now you can actually feel like you're back in that experience. So, VR is on its way here. Like everybody's buying into it, Apple's bought into it. So, that really opens up these possibilities, and that, in 10, 20 years, not only are you reliving these moments, but you feel like you're in the moment again by putting on the VR headset. This is what excites me about VR is like you can actually relive the experience. And so one thing that we are trying to do, and I'm we're going to be launching this really soon, and we're really excited about it, is to be able to capture these ceremonies now in VR, where we'll put the camera in the ceremony, and now you can see like if you're the couple, you can see you doing the vows, but then turn to your left and see mom and dad crying, and then see the baby running around, happy tears, not bad tears. But then you can see the baby running around during the whole time. And there's all these moments that were captured then that they're probably missing out on. They're not realizing what is going on. Same thing with speeches, In VR, imagine you're sitting there and you're watching your best man, your maid of honor giving the speech, and then again you turn around and you can see you crying your ugly tears, like all those things that happen. And then but you can see everybody there watching you in these moments. And same thing with dances, like it's putting you into the space and making you feel like you're actually reliving the moment.
Sure.
More so than the normal highlights we deliver, full ceremonies, speeches, and dances that we deliver. This is actually going to give you a chance to feel like you're there again by feeling like everything is immersing you back into that experience. And so I'm really excited about it. I think there's going to be so much that's going to come out with that. And as of right now that I know of, there's very few videographers offering this. And I think we want to be ahead of the game with this, and we're going to definitely push into this realm of VR and offer this 360 capability and immersion back into their wedding days. I think couples are going to really like that. So, if you're a wedding couple out there that you're thinking about, I want a videographer, like, come reach out to us. Like right now, we're still really diving into the whole 360 thing, and we might be offering it for free at first, just to kind of get our feet wet with it. But I think it's something that most couples are definitely not going to regret getting.
For sure.
So
I mean, that immersive experience is pretty much, you can't really replace it with anything else.
No, you can't. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like nothing can replicate that. That is so hard to replicate. I've been diving into it for a while with other projects that I'm working on, but 360 has got so many uses, and if we're going down that road, we might as well, bring weddings into it too. Give couples the chance to like be immersed back into the experience. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I'm so excited about that as well.
So let's talk a little bit about the kind of like the onboarding experience for wedding couples. So like this is something that is kind of a mystery to wedding couples is, okay, after I have talked with you and I think that this is something I want to do, what's the next steps for us? How do we go from, yes, I kind of want to do this, I want to pick this package, to the day of our wedding? Like, can you walk us through what that whole experience is like from the day that they're like, I want to say yes to this package, and the wedding day?
So yeah, absolutely. When our couples want to move forward with our packages, what we tend to do is write up a contract and send that in, make sure that it's all good and signed, and then we move over to the invoicing. And that's when we take care of initial deposits. Maybe we've worked out a payment plan for you, that's something that we do depending on how far your wedding is. But we get all the invoicing done, and then we go ahead and send a questionnaire so that we understand what's going on throughout the day, maybe all the details that they currently have figured out. If it's much closer to the wedding day, then we also may ask for the photographer or maybe another vendor's timeline just to make sure that we are adjusting the things that we need to do to fit with what they're thinking. And I think that's very important. All the vendors are a team at the end of the day. So from there, we create our own timeline and make sure that you sign off on it. Our couple's opinions are mean the most to us. And then from there, we might have a follow-up call, or maybe if you're very local and you would like to come in, we could meet up somewhere or here in our studio so that you can see who is going to be shooting your wedding or who's taking care of all the details and things like that. And then from there, we go ahead and shoot your wedding day.
Nice. So, something I was just kind of dawned on me as a wedding vendor is we are probably one of the few wedding vendors that actually have a lot of work to do after the wedding day. Almost every other wedding vendor, they're probably tearing down, cleaning up, but that's usually one day after the wedding.
That's true, actually, yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about, talking about the editing side of it? This is something I think a lot of couples miss is, our day is not confined to just the 6-hour, 8-hour package. One, there's a lot of time on the front end, but there's also tons of time on the back end that we have to spend a lot of time really taking this 8-hour package or even a 4-hour package of footage, and now we make that story, right? We create the story. So talk a little bit about the editing process that we have.
So usually what happens after the wedding day is we go back to the studio and we make sure that everything is backed up. We need to make sure that our footage is safe. So that's step number one before anything else. Aside from that, we have a whole editing process in place, which basically it starts off by sorting all the footage, making sure it's in the right folders. That way we can access the footage and know its location very easily. And that speeds up editing process, which is great. And then from there, we build our projects. And this is where these are the things that people might not think about, right? Mm-hmm. And that's, we go through every second of your day and we pick the best moments that we recorded. And what does that allow us to do? That allows us to be able to, from there, know exactly what were the most important and best shots we got from your day. And now they're organized in a fashion where when we build out your highlight, your cinematic film, or your ceremony, or your dances, everything is already placed and picked out so that we got the best of the best, which is a great process. Now we know where to pull from. So then we start to also look at your audio. So what did mom and dad say? What did your brother say? What did your best man or bridesmaids say? Maybe we decided to record your vows, or maybe we decided to record your first look. Maybe we did that and you both said some very amazing things to each other. So what happens is we tend to also look for amazing sound bites that craft the story. And that's where, our lead editor, Maddie, she will listen and really craft a story. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what sometimes we overlook with videography. It's not just taking a video. It's not what it used to be, where it's just, maybe someone just taking a video of something and it's like, yeah, it's kind of a shaky video and the quality's kind of weird, but we kind of got the gist. Thanks, Uncle Rick, or whatever, right?
Right. Now we're with his old camcorder from 1995, you know?
Yeah. And the equivalent now, in a sense, would be, someone with an iPad sticking it out in front of the middle of the aisle.
Oh, man, I can go on a rant for that. iPhones and iPads.
Absolutely. But, we have cinema cameras. These are cameras that render life to an extent that just makes it look even more cinematic and just amazing. So with that, we truly are just crafting a masterpiece. And with that comes good audio, the best shots of the day, and then organizing it in a way where you will be able to watch and be like, wow, I forgot that happened. I forgot I said that. Yep. I didn't realize your brother had said that. I was, maybe you got distracted in the moment. Just all those kinds of things we have. Mm-hmm. So from the editing side, I would say that's the bulk of it. It's organizing, picking the best that we can out of everything, choosing the right song. Mm-hmm. We
It's a
all
hard
know
one.
movies.
Mhm.
The score is half of the battle, quite literally, no pun intended. But it truly is half the battle. So sometimes you might not choose the right song or the right song for the couple.
Right.
That's another thing. So these are all the things that really come into play. It's not just snapping a photo and then editing the photo. It's taking the video, then picking the best moments. Maybe we put it in slow motion,
Right.
or maybe we do some other kind of creative trick to, maybe we add a prism or some other kind of like cool thing. But that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, is being able to craft the best that you can, and you need to organize everything, and it takes hours. It could take up to a day to
Right.
really organize everything. So
Yeah, I would almost say that really editing is probably over half of the work that goes into the wedding for a lot of the good videographers out there. If you're not spending 10, 15, 20 hours on a wedding, you're just crafting something that you're just trying to get done, at that point.
mhm.
So, and that kind of comes again back to the whole experience thing, like less experienced videographers, maybe they don't know how to tell the story just right yet, or like maybe they don't use the dialogue because they didn't realize they needed good audio. It's like then they're just giving you B-roll shots of like best moments, but like it's
Yeah.
not telling us. It's telling a visual story, but it's not telling the story.
Yeah, and I'm very happy you went back to that, because I was also thinking of going back to that. And what happens too is when you get someone who's just starting out, or let's say intermediate. Let's say they've done, well, I'm not saying this is what constitutes as being intermediate, but I'm just saying, let's say they've done 20 weddings
Mm-hmm.
and they've done a good amount of shooting, but they still could use some work, right?
Yeah.
So what happens? Every little mistake or overlooked thing adds up.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if you're not a gear nerd, for example, you won't know what to set your settings at
Right.
quickly. Oh, I'm following the bride out of the room. I already noticed the sun is out there. What am I going to do so that I can still use this shot? So then those are the things that videographers that have been doing it for a long time understand, and it all adds up. So ultimately, those settings matter a lot, whether they make your dress look yellow all of a sudden and you're kind of like, wait, my dress is white. Why is my dress yellow? And that is a technical problem.
Yeah.
That the videographer did not understand. Or you have two videographers that don't know how to work together and they get their settings completely different. And then the editing process, which we just spoke about, gets kind of hindered, and also you're trying to fix something that should have been done correctly the first time.
Right.
And I think, as we all know, that translates into every single thing, like any job,
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm glad we went back to that, because it really just matters.
It
matters.
it really does. I mean, and something, to kind of touch on, that kind of differentiates us with our editing side of things is, a lot of larger wedding videographer companies, or, wedding videographers are doing 40, 50 weddings a year. Most of them are sending their wedding edits out to somebody else to edit. We edit everything in-house here. In fact, we edit for a large national company for their weddings as well. That's how good we are.
Yeah.
That's something I think that differentiates us from a lot of like our competition,
Mm-hmm.
is that I wanted to create this process that I never had to lose control over any of our films, that everything is done in-house, and that we have a dedicated editor to that job. So, because the other issues that come with, when they send them out, they're sending them either to a different country or something, and a lot of times they don't get these weddings back for 3 to 4 months, sometimes 6 months, and it's subpar at that point. And having worked with this company that that now we edit for them, because they went through that process, they were sending it out, I QC'd for them, and you'd be amazed at how bad the videographers are for some of these companies out there. So again, I could go down a rant of like why we do the things we do.
Sure.
But like the big things that differentiates us is like we edit our own films and we offer a quick turnaround. That is something that most couples don't think about, is like, if you don't go with us and you're going with another wedding videographer, ask when your highlight's going to be delivered. Those are important questions to ask, because what you may not realize is it's going to take 4 to 6 months just to get your highlight, something that really shouldn't take that long if your wedding videographer is not that busy. But for us, we do it in less than 30 days. That is something that I made sure that we guarantee is that we can deliver a highlight in 30 days, or a month, give or take. So I want to make sure that all of our highlights go out in 30 days, because I want them to be able to have just enough of a break from the wedding, but then to relive those moments before it was too far gone.
Yeah.
And it's something else with our teasers is we give a 1-minute teaser out for certain packages within 7 days.
7 days.
So it's like a high impact, like everybody gets to see, kind of relive these moments almost immediately after it happens. And what I've realized is a lot of wedding couples are usually on their honeymoon during that time. And so nobody's responding back to me that they got their teaser. And I'm like, why is nobody care about these teasers I just did?
On an island somewhere.
They're sipping on martinis and, living up the high life, of their honeymoons. And God bless them for that. I wish I was there with you. But so we deliver these teasers in 7 days, and we deliver our highlights in 30 days. And usually our ceremonies and speeches and dances go out about the same time. So we never try to leave anybody hanging with any of their footage. Whereas, unfortunately, again, if you're looking for a good wedding videographer out there, ask those questions of, how long is it going to take to get my footage back? And how am I going to get my footage back? Am I going to get, are you sending a hard drive, or are you sending links to something? And if you get those links, like we do, we send out links, make sure to download those as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because they may not leave the links up for very long. Yeah. Or, there's a lot of questions that we can ask. And so that really segues us into really what we're going to probably talk about in our next episode. Mm-hmm. In our next episode, we're going to meet again, and we're going to talk about all these tips and problems and things that might arise from a wedding day that we can help you with, that our experience will tell you to look out for these things, and that will help you and keep you from and avoid disaster, essentially. Whether you hire a different videographer, or things that we've learned about things, look with your coordinators, vendors, everything. We're going to try to talk about as many things as possible of, things that will help a wedding couple, find the right person for them. Mm-hmm. So, be on the lookout for that as we get to there. We're going to get to that next episode. You'll see that in the next 2 weeks. And so, with that, Sebastian, it is a pleasure to have you on board with what we do.
Thank you, Josh.
We're looking forward to all the many great things that you're going to do. He's already filmed a couple of weddings for us, and we're going to have many more weddings coming up that, Sebastian's going to film. So, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, everything that you can to welcome Sebastian into the Buxton Media Productions family. And with that, until next time, we look forward to seeing you on the next Before You Say I Do podcast.
Absolutely. Hit subscribe.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Before You Say I Do podcast. Make sure to subscribe, like, and follow our YouTube channel and podcast platforms.